Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's live stream. It's Thursday, the 30th of April. Goodness knows what day we're on in quarantine or lockdown. I've kind of lost track of time, everybody. So, welcome to today's live stream. Thank you all for joining me. We're going to talk about something called eighth note triplets today. And just so you know, this is going to be more of a beginner's class, reaching into intermediate as well. So, yeah. Sorry about all you advanced players, but to be honest, it's quite nice to go back to some basics because you can always work these up to faster speeds or find tracks that push you with this type of feel anyway. But anyway, thanks for joining me. As you can see, Rob and Dean so far. Thank you guys for joining. And Rob says morning. Well, good morning, everyone. It's 9:30 here in the UK. If you're watching from somewhere else, then welcome also. Guys, don't forget that this will be re-uploaded onto my YouTube page. So if some of this you can't watch the whole lesson, you can always go back and watch it on YouTube, which is up here somewhere. You can see the live stream. Sorry, you can see my social media links. So just so you know, there's going to be a PDF download for this, full of exercises, and that can be downloaded on the description of this live stream. So just find that link and you can follow along with me. The page is called Understanding Eighth Note Triplets. And if you are enjoying this content, then please be sure to drop me a donation. There's a PayPal link also in this live stream, so you can find that if you're feeling kind and you enjoy something. You enjoy the class and you find this very useful for you guys. So let's dive right into it then. So when I'm teaching my students, one of the biggest things that I have to get them to understand quite quickly is something called subdivisions or note values. And it begins to tell them how rhythm works, how it's divided or subdivided, hence the word subdivision. And normally what I do is I get them comfortable with a quarter note, then upgrade them to eighth notes, and then at some point we'll then upgrade them further to 16th notes, okay? And the way I like to see that is if you think if you're in 4/4 time, 4/4 time, let's just say it's divided into 4 core beats. So they're your quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 4. You could then divide it further to eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and which to me feels like each beat is worth 2. And then we skip 3 for some reason. We always go up to 16th notes, which means it's in 4 lots of 4s. 1 E-ander, 2 E-ander, 3 E-ander, 4 E-ander. And that's absolutely fine. It's really good for people to understand those basic numbers, the numbers 1, 2, and 4. You know, they're very easy numbers to work with, very mathematical. They work well for most rhythms that beginner and intermediate drummers get to grips with, okay? Really, really nice rhythms. But at some point, we have to backtrack and think, what does the number 3 represent? Because so far, as I said, you've got number 1 for quarter notes, number 2 for eighth notes, and then number 4 for 16th notes. So at some point, we do need to backtrack and figure out what the 3 is. And in this case, the 3 sits, if we're thinking of them as gears, almost gears in a car, the number 3 sits between eighth notes and 16th notes, okay? So between the number 2 and 4, really basic so far. That's how an eighth note triplet works. And that's how I like to describe them. You could also call them quaver triplets, or they are sometimes just known as triplets, just full stop, okay? Welcome, everybody. I can see we've got Robert and Mark as well. Thank you all for joining me this morning. So now that we've got that technical bit out of the way, if you look at the first line on the PDF, which is bars 1, 2, and 3, what you'll see is a bar of quarter notes, really basic stuff. It even has the counting and the sticking underneath and over the top of it. Then if you look at bar 2, we've got a full bar of eighth note triplets, okay? And 3 times 4, that's going to add up to the number 12, okay? So you should always be conscious of the number 12 and what that means to an eighth note triplet. So if we go on to bar 2, alternating hands, and you get this. Okay, and the way I'm counting that in my head is 1 ander, 2 ander, 3 ander, 4 ander. It's a very constant pulse. There's not necessarily any gaps in that, or at least all the gaps are relative. Listen again. And I'll put a little bass drum pulse underneath it. So fine, hopefully that's relatively easy to understand. But here's the problem. If we're dealing with single strokes, which means we're doing one hand after another, and unless you're an alien, pretty sure everyone's got two hands. These two hands are going to do something strange with the number 3. Now, what's going to happen is the leading hand is going to start, say, on our right hand, if you're right-handed, and then when you get to beat 2, the leading hand becomes the left hand. Beat 3, it flips back onto the right hand, which is our preference, and then beat 4, we're back onto our least preferred hand. If you watch again, watch what happens. I'll try and raise my sticks to show you this. So just be aware of that when you're trying triplets to things like a metronome or a bass drum pulse or something like that. That can be a little bit of an annoyance for new students, okay? So just be mindful of that with a full bar of 8th note triplets. Now, if we look at bar 3, this one is arguably going to be more relevant in today's class. Bar 3 is something called a shuffle, which I think a lot of people have heard that word before, even if they're not a drummer. But maybe they don't know how to describe it, especially if they've never encountered one or tried to even play one on the drums. But the thing is, like, the shuffle is really, really prominent in a lot of music, and it would be a shame to not understand how we create a shuffle, okay? So in the simplest of terms, if you've got 3 notes, which is a set of triplets, if you remove that middle note, you've carved out the middle note, and you're just left with what's the first and the third. So if instead of singing one ander, we're just left with one ah. So we're missing the and, that middle triplet. Now look again at bar 3, and you'll see that that is consistent. And what this is going to do is it's going to create something called a shuffle, which is a very bouncy interpretation of an 8th note triplet. So I'll just show you that to you guys, but I'd count it like this. 1, ah, 2, ah, 3, ah, 4, ah. So it has this like bounce feel, which is one of the cool things that you get when you start to learn 8th note triplets. Welcome new people. We've got Chris and Ross. Welcome guys. Thanks for tuning in. So triplets inherently have this like bounce feel. It's for me, a very circular feel. I know that's a weird word to use, but when you're dealing with like quarter notes, 8th notes and 16th notes, that to me is very square. It makes sense. It's a nice number to work with. Then you start throwing the number 3 into the equation, and the number 6 and the number 12, and it becomes a more circular feel. You'll feel this later on when we get more into the exercises. So the top line is literally just a modulation between quarter notes, a full bar of 8th note triplets, and then something called an 8th note triplet shuffle. Okay, so I'm just going to show you that to you guys. I'm not going to use a click. I'm just going to play it as is. I'm hoping that is pretty self-explanatory, okay? So for all you new drummers out there, make sure you really understand what that top line means. The tempo doesn't change, it's just how many notes you're fitting within the bar, okay? Nice one. So we've got a similar drill, or at least it's based upon the same DNA of that top line. So if you look at bars 4, 5, and 6, then you'll hopefully notice that the rhythm that was once on the snare has now become the rhythm of the hi-hat. And if you're really keen with your sight reading, you may notice that the bass and the snare drum, which is the lower underneath content, isn't actually changing. It's just keeping a 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just keeping a really solid foundation. So what we're looking for here, ideally, is the hi-hat doing all the modulating, all the changing, okay? I'll show it to you. Hopefully it will make sense. Just watch out for the shuffle bar, which is bar 6. I'll just play it a little bit faster for you lot. Okay, again, I'm hoping that that's relatively self-explanatory. You'll notice that the bar 5, which is full triplets, is quite aggressive for the right hand, so it's quite a nice way of building some speed with your leading hand. But then you might notice that when you get to bar 6, it just creates this really bouncy feel, which is what is inherent with a shuffle in 4/4 time particularly. And just so you know, the 8th note shuffle is made probably most popular by a track like The Boys Back in Town by Thin Lizzy, or if I get a bit festive on you guys, there's tons of Christmas songs that use like that bouncy rhythm, like Rocking Around the Christmas Tree, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Jingle Bell Rock. They all have this type of feel. And it just got this really nice bouncy quality to them, which I'm sure adds to that cheery nature of the tracks that I've just mentioned. Nice. Okay, let's keep moving forward then. And I will openly invite you to leave any questions that you have in the comments section. And please feel free to ask anything you like. Anything goes. Maybe you can tell me what you've been up to lately, what you lot have been practicing, what you miss about this whole lockdown situation. Just anything goes. Just tell me your feelings in the comments. All right, so let's look now at what makes up the core part of this first page. So this is bars 7 and 8 is what we're looking to join together here. So bar 7 is full triplets on the hi-hat. Bar 8 is shuffle triplets on the hi-hat. So they are meant to be played side by side. Now, if you look at number 7 again, you'll notice that there's an additional bass drum which is falling to the back part of beat 3. So I'll just play that slowly for you. So we're going to explore some nicer places to put the bass and snare, or at least some different places, just so you've got a little bit more vocabulary to use in this particular drum scenario. And talking of scenarios, I didn't really mention it before, but if you're dealing with like the numbers 1, 2, and 4, so quarter notes, 8th notes, and 16th notes, they're considered like straight rhythms, where they sound quite rigid, very straight, very precise. When you're dealing with something called an 8th note triplet, or its counterpart, which is something called a sextuplet, which is where you play 6 on a beat, they're known as swung rhythms. So a lot of music is either defined as very straight. I think of a lot of disco music for that kind of thing, or dance music is usually quite straight. And then you've got these swung shuffle rhythms. And I think of things like blues music, jazz, like reggae is quite swung, and a lot of Christmas songs, as I mentioned. So this is what's going to happen then. So bar 7 is like the 8th note triplet version. And we want to play 2 of those ideally. And when you get to bar 8, we need to remove the middle hi-hat and it becomes a shuffle equivalent. All right, so I'll play them side by side, 2 of each. Okay, so you can hear the change, you can hear the drop out of that middle triplet, but it does give it this bouncy feel. I'll play it a lot faster now just so we can create a different vibe. Good. I'm hoping that, again, that scenario makes sense. It's a fantastic way to flirt between full triplets and then a shuffle triplet. Awesome. So a few comments. So Sean says, thanks, Lewis. Nice lesson. You're very welcome. And also someone has said, good morning. I'm not... do excuse me. I'm going to find it very hard to pronounce your name. But morning to you. Thank you very much. And thank you, Nathan, for joining us. Awesome. So like I said, leave any comments or questions that you might have. So, yeah, it's really nice to be able to go between the full triplets and then the shuffle triplets, okay? And the faster you go, the more pressure that you'll feel when you're doing full triplets, because there's not really any respite for the right hand. Anyway, let's keep moving on then. So bar 9 and also bar 10 belongs with this. We're just changing the bass drum positions, okay? So now we've got a bass drum falling at the end of beat 2 and then at the beginning of beat 3. So you're going to get this nice doubling effect. So I'll play bar 9. Nice and slow. And then here's the shuffle equivalent. And then 2 of each, both together. And now much faster. Okay, nice. So let's keep pushing forward, because the next few drills just keep following this formula, and I'm just giving you like new ideas for this particular groove style. So if you look at now bar 11 and bar 12, so we've got an additional snare at the end of beat 2, and then we've got something strange happening here. If you look at beat 3, we're knocking out the first 2 bass drums that could exist there, and we're just playing on the very last triplet of beat 3. Okay, this is a really nice feel, this one. This works in so many styles. Just grooves, it's got a really good pocket. So here's bar 11 slow. And then here's the shuffle equivalent. And here they are both together, nice and slow first. Awesome. Okay, hopefully that's making sense to everybody. Like I said, this was more aimed for beginners, especially these first couple of drills. But let's keep pushing, all right? So I'm going to play that one much faster. That's where it gets into the more intermediate and advanced stages, especially with your technique. This pushes your technique quite far, especially for the right hand. So I'm going to play it a lot quicker now. Awesome. Super bouncy beat. It's like the happiest drum beat ever. Very hard to make that one sound like a sad song. Okay, so let's keep moving forward then. So what have we got now? We've got bars 13 and 14, which is our last example of this in this type of scenario. So we've got a bass drum on the end of beat 2, and then a bass drum on the end of beat 3. This is a really nice feel. It just helps push the beat along in a certain way. So I'll play you the full triplet version and then the shuffle version. Okay, I'm now going to do that a lot quicker. So I would really recommend, if you're new to this topic, just getting really comfortable with those first couple of grooves. Like, really understand them and really feel them, because I suppose a lot of the time triplet rhythms have quite a lot of feel to them, and we need to make sure that we're not playing it too stiff. So Nathan says, nice, I remember neglecting the shuffle for the first few years of playing, but now I've made it a commitment to work on it. Awesome. It's actually quite tricky once you're stuck in what I call straight time, so you overindulge in your quarters, eighths, quarters, eighths, 16th notes, and even 32nd notes. yeah, it can be a little bit strange to then adopt that triplet feel, and you get this like more circular, more spongy, bouncy feel to your playing. So yeah, don't neglect this stuff. And say even if you're beyond what I consider the basics, which is what a lot of this is about, and just rep it fast. A good example drummer of someone who can do this really, really fast with a nice groove is someone like Ash Zone. So follow Ash on somewhere like Instagram. He's always doing this kind of thing. He's just got a really good technique for that sort of style of drumming. So follow Ash Zone for an example of that. Okay, let's move forward then. So we've got a couple of grooves under our belt now, and we're going to start exploring some fill-ins in triplet time, because it would be such a waste to get to grips with a few beats and then not know how to put any icing on the cake, so to speak. So if you look at bar 15 and bar 16, these guys do accompany one another, and it just creates a scenario for a drummer playing in this triplet shuffle feel. So bar 15, we've actually seen that beat before. It's further up the page, and we're looking for 3 versions of it. Okay. Now, when we get to the 4th bar, which happens to be bar 16 in this exercise, we're just going to play a really basic fill, and we're back to full triplets with alternating hands, and it's just going to go around the kit like this. So everything's in 3s, 3 on the snare, 3 on tom 1, 3 on tom 2, and then 3 back to the snare, okay? And like I said earlier, just be really careful, because we have 2 pairs of hands, or sorry, 1 pair of hands, which is 2 hands, then, you know, the number 3 is going to throw it from right to left like this. You could hopefully see that I tried to exaggerate my hands there. Okay, so we've got to make sure that this blends really nicely together, so I'll show you it slow first. Real nice little scenario to just build your chops between the groove and the fill. And a couple of common things that especially new drummers or younger drummers tend to do is that they want to work to the number 2 or to the number 4, so they end up doing this by accident, and they're just adding up to the number 8 instead of the number 12. So just be conscious of that. You could count it like this: 1 under, 2 under, 3 under, 4 under, or you could just take it a step back into some even more basic singing, which is just 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. So there it is. I'm going to play it a bit quicker and then we'll move on. Fine, okay, so the next few examples, I'm just loading you guys up with a few fill-ins that you can use. Rob says, Picaro Shuffle. Absolutely. So the Jeff Picaro Shuffle and also the Bernard Purdie Shuffle. Best track to listen to for the Jeff Picaro feel is Rosanna by Toto. Very famous track for this type of feel. We might hear a little bit of a Rosanna groove later on. So let's keep pushing forward then. So if you look at bar 17 and 18, so bar 17, it's just that beat 3 times again. And then if you look at the fill-in, it's in 3s, and it's going high tom, snare, tom 3, snare. Okay, so we're making an L shape on the kit. Still just alternating my hands and still just moving to the number 3. And now faster. let's keep pushing forward. So if you now look at bars 19 and 20, so bar 19, it's that same beat 3 times again. You're seeing a theme here. We're just using it to create a scenario. The beat we're not as focused on now. Hopefully you should have that down by the time you get to this point. Now if you look at the fill-in, we're seeing something slightly polyrhythmic here. Polyrhythm is just where one rhythm fits within another. It literally translates to many rhythms. So what we're seeing here is the 12 notes are being divided in a slightly more special way. So it's actually asking for 2 lots of 3 on the snare. So you could just count to the number 6 if you want to, or 1-ander, 2-ander. Okay, and then what we're seeing here is the remaining 6 divided into 3 lots of 2s rather than 2 lots of 3s, which is what we would naturally see until you step into a polyrhythm within triplets. Okay, so that sounds really complicated, but actually all you're doing is going tom 1, tom 2, tom 3, just in 2s like this. And that adds up to the number 6. So put that all together and you end up with this sound. So if you really wanted to, you could just go 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2. Or if you want to be really clever and feel the polyrhythm a bit more, you could sing the true numbers: 1-ander, 2-ander, 3-ander, 4-ander. Which is a little bit harder because it sometimes goes against the number. So let's hear this one slow. And now much faster. Feel free to add a crash if you want to. All right, nice. So, hope everyone's doing well. Again, thanks for tuning in. Remember that you can download the PDF to accompany today's class, and it will be uploaded on YouTube later if you can't watch it all. And if you're feeling charitable, then there is a PayPal donations link in this live stream, just to support me during the pandemic, and just to show general support for these live streams, because I'm hoping that you get something really valuable from it. Okay, wonderful. We're going to now move on to bar 21 and bar 22. Bar 21, we're just back to that beat 3 times, okay? I'm not going to change that, not rocking the boat too much. Then, if you look at bar 22, we've just got a fill-in, a simple fill-in that just plays off of the crash, okay? I like to see this in 2 lots of 6s. Here's how the first 6 sounds. Crash in the bass for the first beat. We then need to be able to play that twice, and that adds up to 12 notes. Let's bring the beat in nice and slow. And if you have 2 crashes on your kit, by all means try and use both of them like I was doing then. If you just have 1 crash, then that's fine, just reach for that crash. And if you don't even have a crash, then just use something like the ride or the hi-hat, just something like that's fine. The hi-hat or the ride can replace the crash. I should have been a bit more specific. Okay, so if we now look at bar 23, things change a little bit here, okay? And within the next 2 examples, I'm going to introduce a slightly different sticking pattern. Now, what that means to you beginner drummers, the sticking pattern literally refers to the order of hands, so what order you play in. And what we've done so far is we've just been using alternating strokes, which is right, left, that seem to fit quite nicely into a triplet scenario. So what we're looking to do now is learn 2 nice stickings that just complement a triplet beautifully. Okay, so they're in groups of 3 basically, which is very natural for a triplet. So the first sticking I want you to be able to learn is something called right, left, left, which is actually one of my favorite stickings, despite how short it is. So that's the first one that we need to get really good at, is right, left, left. And then if I just slightly skip ahead here, looking at bar 26, there's an equivalent, which is right, right, left, okay, which is slightly different, but again, it's in a group of 3, so it naturally falls with a triplet beautifully. So you want to make sure that you've got those 2 new sticking patterns feeling really, really good before you consider moving on, okay? All right, let's try it. Let's give it a go. So bar 23 and bar 24 is what we're looking at here. So we need that drum beat 3 times again, so we're not changing that. Now, with right, left, left, what we're going to do here is keep our left hand on the snare and let our right hand traverse around the kit. So the right hand has a journey of just doing this. Not a game changer, but still really useful for this type of fill-in. If I add in that left hand, I end up with this. And you know what? A lot of my younger beginner students actually find that really, really easy to do. They actually find it a little easier than doing alternating strokes sometimes. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. And here it is being blended with the beat. Okay, and we're now going to try that a little bit quicker. So here it is. I love the feel of that. You can see why it's a really, really nice sticking pattern to learn. So really easy to feel that. And I don't think it's like that nasty to get fast. So a couple of comments. So Sean says, thanks, Lewis, nice lesson. And we've got a couple of people joined as well. So welcome everybody to this live stream. I apologize if the lighting's going a bit funky at times. I'm not sure why it's doing that. But I got a key light here, but maybe it's going weird because the weather keeps changing outside. I've got like a window right here. And England at the minute is like going from sunny to rain every like 20 minutes. Anyway, hope you guys are enjoying it. If you are, then obviously please show your support with the donations from PayPal. And don't be afraid to follow me on the social media, which you can see just up on the the left-hand corner of your screen. So again, thanks for joining me this morning. Hope you're getting something from today's class. Now, let's check out that other sticking then. So bar 25, we've just got that same beat 3 times, so not changing that. And then we've got the sticking pattern, which is right, right, left. We're following a similar rule though. Our right hand is going to do all the action around the kit, and our left hand is just going to stay on the snare. So the right hand actually gets to move in the same way, like this. But instead of doing just the one right hand, it's doing 2 right hands, just because of the way the sticking is written. So here's bar 26 altogether. And I'm still feeling that like 8th note triplets, okay? 1 ander, 2 ander, 3 ander, 4 ander. Okay, let's push forward. So we're going to try and bring those 2 together like this. Okay, I'm hoping that that makes sense to everybody. Excellent. Okay, so that is actually a lot of the core content done. And I've actually written down 2 bonus examples for you guys, just people that want to stretch themselves or try and get up to the next skill level, the next ladder of 8th note triplets. Okay, I'll just read one of the comments. So Nathan says, enjoying the stream, Lewis. Just wondered if you'll be doing any more advanced topics in upcoming live streams. Absolutely, Nathan. Yep, this one was just by request. There was a couple of requests to do stuff on triplets, which I'm hoping that people are tuning in or can rewatch. But if you've got an advanced topic that you want me to cover, then please just leave it in the comments, and I will see what I can do. Yeah, I do apologize. It's really hard to like set the skill level of these live streams, but I'm still hoping that there's at least something that everyone can get from it. Because even if you are an advanced player, you should be shredding these. You should be playing them a lot faster, doing them like stamina drills, so go super fast, but see if you can hold it for 5 minutes. Or just try and be creative in your own way, or bring the metronome in. Just try and make it harder than the face value content that I'm given. For the beginner drummers though, you want to start this nice and slowly and just build very rock solid foundations. But yeah, anybody, if you've got some advanced topics that you want me to do, could be anything. If you want to try and push yourselves, or if there's a topic that you just want that little bit of an extra insight in, then be my guest. Leave your comments and suggestions in the YouTube comments section. Let's have a drink. Okay, the final 2 drills are little bonus exercises. So if you look at bar 27 and bar 28, this is a 2-bar phrase, and it's actually doing something called a half-time shuffle. So without boring yourselves with what a half-time is, if we just consider normal time where the snare drum's just falling on the 2 and the 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. If we just consider that normal time, then when you go into half time, typically you just reduce the snare drum to beat 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's how you get this half time feel, okay? It's a perceived feeling that the groove feels half as slow. So we're actually going to learn something called a half-time shuffle, and it's a diluted half-time shuffle just so it sits for beginners and intermediate players. But if you're looking for a masterclass in this, then as Rob mentioned earlier in the live comments, Rosanna by Toto is one of the best half-time shuffles ever. Arguably one of the nicest recorded half-time shuffles. So let's check this one out then. We just need to be really careful about our beat placement, but I'll do it slowly for you guys. So hopefully you'll notice that even though the right hand is still doing quite a lot of work, keeping up that shuffle, that bouncy feel, you'll then notice that the perception of the groove feels really slow. Like that snare drum happens just twice over a 2-bar phrase. And that in its nature is what a half-time is typically about before you start messing with it a little bit further. So I'm now going to show you that a lot quicker. And this is going to get you up to that like Rosanna type feel that Jeff Beccaro plays, or more of an Ash Sohn way of playing. So I'll just gradually ramp up. I'll see how I'm feeling this morning with it. There you go, a half-time shuffle, just for a little bonus exercise for you lot. And I have one more bonus exercise to show you guys this morning. All right. So once I've got my beginner or intermediate students understanding all of this content and they're rock solid, then what I'll introduce is, if we're in that shuffle feel with our right hand, shuffles on the hi-hats, what I'll do is I'll introduce what could be considered a sub-beat. So for instance, if you look at bar 29, if you look at the third part of it, the third beat, there's a snare drum that's falling what would be in the middle triplet. So it's falling between the shuffle for the right hand. That sounds really wordy, but if you literally just like check out what's above that snare, you'll notice it's just a rest. Now that is considered a subbeat, and it's just this extra level of groove that you can get out of a shuffle. All right, and that seems to be the next natural step up of the ladder, of the skill ladder for this particular topic. So I'll just show you bar 29, then I'll show you bar 30, and then ideally we want to bring these together. All right, a lot of people, like a lot of like younger, newer players to this, find this really quite nasty to do. So let's see how we get on. So you can hear that additional snare, and you can see that it needs to very neatly work around the hi-hat shuffle. Okay, now if I show you bar 30, it's a similar deal. We've got a subbeat snare in the middle of beat 3. Okay, so this is bar 30. Okay, again, it's a similar challenge, just being able to find that independent snare, or you call it a subbeat. So, okay, let's pull 29 and 30 together. I'll start slow, and then I'll get some speed happening. And by the time I'm playing it faster, it does remind me of tracks like Boys Are Back in Town by Thin Lizzy. Anyway, slow first. And now much, much faster, I'm going to inject my own feel into it. So let's see how it sounds. Here's how I'm injecting a little bit more feel into it. Yes, it's being played fast, but the subbeat snare drums have now become ghost notes, which are much softer. So probably can't really hear that very well. It's coming through a lot quieter. And what I'm doing with my right hand is I'm doing an accent on the first note of the shuffle and then a softer note on the second. So you end up with this dynamic hi-hat part like this. Not only does that sound nice, but it is actually quite energy efficient as well. So I'm not completely blowing my energy just to play this beat for you. So if I play it fast again, hopefully you'll hear these little nuances. Awesome. So there's a little bit of homework if you want to push this topic just that little bit further, okay? So that has got us to the end of the exercises in this live stream. Hoping that you guys really enjoyed it. Dean says, looking forward to perfecting these later and currently air drumming them in the office. Awesome. Yeah, again, you can practice your shuffles without actually having a drum kit. You just start with those core rhythms from this exercise and go from there, or from this sheet that's available through this stream. So other than that, just start really slowly and just make sure that you absolutely are playing the triplets and the shuffles correctly. If you're feeling brave enough, then yes, you could bring a metronome into it. Anyway, at this point, I invite you guys to ask any further questions because I'll be wrapping up the live stream shortly. But I'm hoping that you enjoyed it, and I'm hoping that this gives you some real value, especially if you're a beginner moving into an intermediate player as well. The reason that I'm calling this beginner to intermediate is because on a beginner level, this is like very much the foundation of how you play these rhythms. But I'm calling it intermediate as well because intermediate drumming is where you begin to feel it, or you begin to start playing it in a song, or you begin to start being creative or expressing yourself a little bit more. And of course, when you're professional, then you're just playing it incredibly well. You're fitting it into lots of different scenarios. It's effortless. It's hardly taking up much energy. The creativity is just oozing out of you. That's how you get it to that professional standard. Almost like where you could just take it to live or studio and you can just play it, no sweat, okay? Anyway, that's generally what I wanted to show you this morning. Again, I'll just redirect you to follow my social media, which the links are up on the top left of the screen. So if you could just find me on YouTube or Instagram or Twitter, just type in those and you'll find me. If you enjoyed this live stream, then feel free to share it as well or leave any comments. Share it with some drummers that could do with this kind of thing. Yeah, it's just nice to build a big following with this kind of stuff, because I believe I've got some really nice things to share with you. And if you do really enjoy it, then please leave a donation with the PayPal link. Anything helps during this really strange time for a musician. Anyway, I'm not seeing any new live comments at the moment, so I'm going to assume everybody is happy. Thank you so much for tuning in, all that did. It will be going up on my YouTube page later on, probably today, so you can always rewatch it and reverse and follow along with the PDF that was available. But other than that, I'm going to love you and leave you guys. Enjoy the rest of your day, wherever you are in the world, and just stay safe and keep drumming, all right? See you guys soon. Take care.